Well, good evening. I would like to, I'm State Senator Bill Beagle, and I would like to introduce Emily Oldham, Jr., our fair president, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The senator was up just a second ago. I was supposed to do that first. I'm sorry we're off to a rocky start, but please bear with me. The gentleman that was up that introduced Emily is Senator Bill Beagle, and he's going to introduce the rest of the folks that are here. You may have a seat if you'd like, please. The honor guard this evening, if you see on your program, is made up of the three veterans units in the city of Troy, and I thank them sincerely for being here. And they could always use some volunteers to be in that honor guard if anybody's interested. So at this time, let's see if we can smooth this out and move along. I'm going to introduce Senator Beagle, who is going to introduce the rest of the folks that are going to speak to you. Thank you again for coming.
Well, thank you very much. And the good news is you don't get to hear me speak very much. My job today is to introduce to you a couple of our American heroes. And the first is Command Sergeant Major Jeff Stapleton. He's a gentleman I've had a chance to get to know in his capacity here in the county, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I'm pleased that he and I have had a chance to get to know each other a little bit. And he is a native of Troy, Ohio, and he enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1976 as a combat engineer, and later changed over to become an infantryman. He retired after 25 years of active federal service in 2001. His awards include the Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medals, 7 Army Commendation Medals, 7 Army Achievement Medals, the DeFleury Medal for Leadership, and is a Sergeant Audie Murphy inductee. Command Sergeant Major Stapleton is a graduate of the United States Army Sergeant Majors Academy. He's a graduate of the U.S. Army Airborne, U.S. Army Ranger School, U.S. Army Air Assault School, the Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School, Pathfinder, Recondo, Sapper Leader Course, Northern Warfare Survival Course, Jungle Expert School, Desert Survival Course, Urban Warfare Instructor, Mountain Warfare Instructor, and he also has a bachelor's degree in business management, which sounds frightfully dull and boring after everything else you've gotten, sir. So, Jeff is a combat veteran, and his assignments include various airborne, air assault, rapid deployment units during his career in the countries of Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, Panama, Africa, Somalia, South America, and Egypt. Please join me in welcoming the Executive Director and Veteran Service Officer of Miami County's Veteran Service Organization, Jeff Stapleton.
The way he was talking, you'd think somebody of importance was here today, right? I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak before you today. As you know, I'm the Director for Miami County Veteran Services. And what we do is we're advocates for the veterans here in Miami County, and we try to take care of your benefits that you'll need to do through the VA. I'm going to give you a little bit of background first of our organization. There are 88 counties in the state of Ohio. Each county has an organization just like my office, and it's all there to take care of the veterans. 0.5 millage of your tax dollars goes to fund that. So your tax money pays for my paycheck, so I definitely got to work for you, right? We have a commission of Veterans Commissioners, and they are made up of American Legion, VFW, AMVETS, Korean War vets, and also one that's not titled. We have an open position. That board meets twice a month, and we go over veterans issues, and we approve the different things that we do in the county for the veterans, one of those being financial assistance, and we talk about ways to better help the veterans here in the county. One thing I do want you to know is that, just to reaffirm to you, is that I work for each and every one of you who are veterans, or if you're a spouse of a veteran, or if you're a widow, okay? So you need to come and see me to get things done that you need to do. Some of the things that we do is we prepare all the VA forms that you are required for any type of compensation or pension or anything like that. We prepare documents for all the proper submission. We also do transportation to the VA hospital. Is Richard Carr in the audience today? Richard, you out there? There he is over there. That's an awesome man right there. He takes the veterans back and forth to the VA hospital every day. We appreciate him. Some of the other things we do emergency relief, and that's funding that we get to help veterans who are in financial need. A lot of the things that we do deal with giving them grocery vouchers or paying utility bills, helping to pay for rent, unexpected medical expenses, like if you needed dentures or eyeglasses or hearing aids and you didn't have the money to do that, we would chip in as much as we could to do that. Our ceiling on that per visit's like $700, so you can do that 3 times a year. So that's a $2,100 benefit that you can get every year. I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on both here in the state of Ohio and the upgrades that we've done in our office. We have recently, and thanks to the county commissioners, we have an awesome facility at 510 West Water Street in the old Hobart government building now. So we have a full office staff there and a great resource for us to utilize for you. We have upgraded our computer systems to a thing called VetraSpec. And what it's going to enable us to do, it'll be coming online next month, what it'll enable us to do is to be able to file claims directly with the VA in real time. So when we get all your paperwork together and we hit the send button, it goes to the VA right then and there, and that becomes your claim date. The VA has it in their hand, in their system, ready to review at that time. Some of the other things that are coming up, we just had legislation here in the state of Ohio to make military ID cards for veterans who aren't retirees, so you don't have to carry your DD-214 around with you. That'll come into effect in about 90 days. You should be able to go to your county recorder's office at that time to acquire that ID card. The VA Medical Center this year has come up with some changes. It's no longer an income-based facility, so if you are a veteran, an honorably discharged veteran, you can get medical treatment down at the Dayton VA now. And I know a lot of you have heard some bad things about the VA, but I work directly with them, with the Dayton VA, and it's probably, and not being biased, it's probably the best VA in here in this country today. The director of the VA down there was sent to Arizona to take care of that mess, if that tells you anything about that director down there. He does care. You can walk in and talk to him at any time about issues, and he gets on them. So that's a good thing for us. So if you are a veteran and you're kind of struggling a little bit and you need some health care, that's the best thing going for you. I encourage you to get down there, go to the eligibility desk, get signed up, and get some health care going. We also have a working relationship with Job and Family Services for those who need employment. Every Thursday out at the Job and Family Services area, you can go out there and there's a person dedicated to veterans who will help you fill out resumes, applications, and help you find a job. I also, in my office, keep a book with all the current organizations that are hiring veterans here in the community. So come in and take a look at that if you need some employment. They just approved the women's license plate for veterans. So how many female veterans do I have out here today? Well, you can get your own license plate now. Does that sound good? Okay. Outreach program, like I'm doing here today, talking to you guys. We try to do as much as we can to get out and talk to folks to let us know who we are. I still get people come in my office on a daily basis and say, man, I didn't even know you guys were here. So those of you here today, please pass the word around and let them know who we are and what we do. If you have somebody that's in need, get them in our office. A note for active duty. Is there any active duty out here today? No active duty. Well, pass this on to them. We find we have a lot of problems with the active duty soldiers transitioning out of the service and getting the compensation claims done correctly and getting the compensation that they need. When they out-process from the service, they don't get the greatest briefings in the world. So if you know somebody that's getting ready to transition out of the service, they don't have to be from Miami County, from anywhere. Send them to my office and let me sit down and talk to them about what they need to look at and what they need to do. Yeah. We also do non-service connected compensation, and we also do assistance for home loans and education. There's 2 different titles under federal code for education that I can help you with, and filling out the forms. Sometimes they're a little confusing. Each college should also have a staff member that's dedicated to help veterans out. However, sometimes that doesn't work out very well. We also do assistance for burials and help them fill out the paperwork. I work with a lot of funeral directors here in the county to make sure that those benefits are taken care of, make sure they have the flags, make sure they get the plaques for the burials and all that good stuff. DD 214s, most important document that you'll have. They're called a couple other things for the older era veterans, but it's basically your discharge that shows your service. You can't get anything done, any type of benefit at all without that. I strongly encourage, if you haven't done so, to go down to the recorder's office and get that on file. And it's free of charge, so you don't have to worry about that part of it. Well, I told the museum that I would give them a little bit of a plug here. If you guys haven't been up to the museum, it's a good place to go see. They've done a lot of work up there. It's at the Masonic Temple on the 2nd floor in downtown Troy. I encourage you to go check that out. Basically, that's what we do in a nutshell. Just pass the word around to people and let them know that we're here, and we're here to take care of veterans. Sometimes we get pretty slow and we have to try to go out and find people to help. I don't want to have to do that. I want you guys to come in and see me. Is there anybody here right now who has a claim pending? A couple of you? Well, what our office has done is we've implemented a policy that we do the fully developed claim process now. So when I submit a claim for you, I can guarantee that when it goes to the VA, it's 100% correct and ready for rating. We give them all the information that they need. You that have dealt with the VA before know that they'll send you these letters that says, I'm working on your claim, be patient. And then a month later, you'll get another letter that says, I need the following documents, which they already have, by the way. So we have to go back and forth with that. With the process that I have in place now, I can get that done. And we used to see claims that take a year or more to get done. I'm seeing some claims done within a month, which is absolutely amazing, right? I'm seeing other claims done within 4 months, but the norm right now is about 8 months for a claim to get approved. So it would behoove you to come in and see us so we can get you taken care of. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for your service as well as your service to veterans as they continue to transition back to civilian life. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to thank our friends at the Troy High School Band for their entertainment and prior to today's program, as well as the Color Guard for their participation. And I want to recognize our sponsors, Unity National Bank, and our friends, the Taylor family at Troy Ford. You know, our next speaker is Garl McHenry, and I've had a chance to listen to Garl when he gave a talk out at the Waco Museum a while back. We took our children to this thing to listen to a World War II era veteran talk about his experience in combat. Garl was raised in Indiana and registered for the draft on his 18th birthday. And he worked at a filling station, he drove a truck, until he was called up in March of 1943. He joined the Army Air Corps as a radio man and an aerial gunner and was assigned to a B-24. And I'm going to let him tell you about his time in the service and his time in Europe. But after he completed 31 missions, including a parachute jump over England in 1944, he returned stateside and was on his way out to Yuma, Arizona, in preparation of heading out to the Pacific Theater, and wound up at the San Bernardino Army Air Force Base when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So in October of 1945, he was discharged, where he immediately, it is said, went out to buy some civilian clothes and a car, and to hang around for a little while till he found a job as a bandsaw and belt sander operator. He went on to Indiana Technical College, where he got a Bachelor of Science in Radio Engineering. And then he married his high school sweetheart, Millicent, and they are still married today at 55 years and counting, so congratulations. He continued throughout his career. He worked at places like RCA, General Electric, Magnavox, ITT, Ledex in Dayton, and TRW Globe Motorsports here in Dayton. He also built 6 houses over the course of his lifetime, continues to work in ham radio operation, and he and his wife have taken ballroom dancing lessons, which I don't think we're going to get to observe today. And as one would imagine, with his experience, he holds a deep faith in God, and that has been an important part of his life. And I hope you'll join me in a warm round of applause for Mr. Garl McHenry.
I wasn't aware that there was that much information out there on me. So, during World War II, I was trained to be a radio operator and an aerial gunner, and then assigned to a 10-man B-24 bomber crew. We were stationed in Gibbenham, England, and out of there we flew 31 bombing missions over enemy-occupied Germany and France. We bombed railroad yards, bridges, airfields, submarine pens, transformer stations, oil refineries, and machine manufacturing plants. While on those missions, our biggest problem was enemy flak. Now, flak is actually jagged pieces of metal that comes from exploding projectiles that was fired at us from anti-aircraft guns. On one of those missions, we had a piece of flak sever a hydraulic line on our bomber. When we got back to the base, we didn't have any brakes to stop us on the landing strip. So we tied parachutes to the gun mounts in the waist windows of the bomber. When the pilot flew the bomber onto the landing strip and cut the engines back, then we opened the parachutes and stopped the aircraft on the landing strip. On another mission, we had a piece of flak lodge in the control surfaces on the tail of the aircraft, and it threw us into an unexpected dive. We dove from 22,000 feet to about 3,000 feet before the pilot and co-pilot got us straightened out and leveled off. They did it by forcing the controls through the full range of operation, and evidently the flap fell out and allowed them to take over control. On that mission, we decided not to go back up and get in the formation we just dove out of, because we was afraid we'd be a straggler the rest of the way across France, and we'd probably get shot down by enemy fighters. So we selected a altitude just above the treetops there in France, and we came out across France at that altitude and landed safely in England. We were supposed to fly 35 missions to complete our tour of duty and get sent back to the United States. We was on our 32nd mission and in a formation over the North Sea, headed for Ludwigshafen, Germany, to bomb a chemical plant. 2 of the 4 engines on our aircraft went out of control, and we had to shut it down, shut both of them. We was losing altitude at 300 feet a minute while flying on only 2 engines. We dropped our bombs in the North Sea and threw out everything we could get loose in the bomber to try to reduce the weight. We made it back to England, but we was only at 1,500 feet and still losing altitude. All of England was covered with fog and clouds, and we couldn't go under those clouds and things while we was losing weight, or we'd crash. So the pilot asked 7 of us to bail out. After we bailed out, then he could hold the altitude, and he flew around until some of the overcast dissipated, and he was able to land at our home field. Out of the 7 men that bailed out, we had 2 men with broken legs and 3 men with sprained ankles, and I was one of them with the sprained ankle. The 5 of us was sent back to the States, and the rest of the crew was put into a pool and had to fly the full 35 missions. We flew a mission to Normandy, France on D-Day when the Allied troops started the invasion of Europe. We was carrying a load of fragmentation bombs to drop on those large gun emplacements that the Germans had built on the shore out at Le Havre, France. They had surrounded those gun emplacements with machine gun nests, thinking they could keep the invading forces from capturing that gun. And it was our job to destroy those machine gun nests and kill those gunners. This was probably the easiest mission we had on our whole tour. We bombed from 8,000 feet. We didn't have to worry about frostbite or breathing oxygen. We didn't have any anti-aircraft fire because those guns were trained on the troops coming in over the English Channel. We made our bomb run over the English Channel, and as we did, we could see the fire and smoke coming from the large guns sitting out there on the big ships as they shelled the beaches. We could see the landing craft full of men and equipment headed for the beach, and we dropped our bombs about 2 minutes before the first troops landed there at Le Havre. Now, when we was over the continent and got close to a city or a potential target, we would receive anti-aircraft fire. And when we got back to the base, we always counted the number of flak holes in the airplane. We usually had more than one. And on one mission, we had 17 holes in our aircraft. And some of those holes was 2 and 3 inches in diameter. On that mission, we had a waist gunner get hit in the temple with flak. And he lost some blood, but he wasn't killed. If we flew over a large city like Berlin or Munich, they estimated that there would be over 250 of those anti-aircraft guns that could be fired at us. And those gunners could figure out about where we had to be up there to release our bombs and hit the target. So they would just blanket that release point and the bomb run area with an aircraft fire. And as we came in on the mission, on the bomb run and looked up ahead, it looked like a big cloud. But you would see the flashes in there as those anti-aircraft projectiles were exploding. And this was really the worst part of the mission as far as we was concerned. We knew we had to fly through that mess to drop our bombs. See, occasionally there would be a bomber peel out of that cloud. Usually it'd be out of control and headed for a crash landing. Sometimes that plane would be on fire. If a projectile made a direct hit on a bomber, the bomber usually exploded, and you would see the tail or the nose section or an engine or a wing drop out of that cloud. You would see men jumping out of those pieces of aircraft and those disabled aircraft. Some of those men would be wearing parachutes. Some of them couldn't get to their parachute, and they chose to jump to their death rather than ride the piece down to a fiery crash. Sometimes those men would be on fire, or their parachute would be on fire. We heard stories about how the German fighters was killing our men as they parachuted to the ground. Some of them were killed when they got to the ground by knives, guns, and pitchforks. Others were captured and paraded through cities and put into prisoners of war camp. And a few of them escaped the capture and walked out over the continent to freedom with the help of the French underground. All of these things just embedded in our mind, and we carry them for the rest of our life. A lot of us don't go to museums and look at old newsreels or ride in simulators because it brings tears to your eyes and causes dreams. It was really bad when you come back from a mission. You laid there and tried to sleep, and those things rolled over and over in your mind. And a lot of us had to take sleeping pills. You thought about how you'd have to go back up there the next day and go through that same thing again. And you'd have to do it 35 times. And you just hoped and prayed that you would survive. I flew in the upper gunnery turret on our plane and shared that time with the engineer gunner. I flew in that turret while he transferred gas and did any emergency repairs that was required on the plane. He flew in the turret while I armed bombs, took pictures of the target, and did my radio work. But he flew in that turret on every bomb run. He sat there and looked at that mess we had to fly through, how those planes were going down and those men were jumping out, and he had a nervous breakdown after 17 missions. It was a real concern for me because he and I worked out of that radio compartment area, and we was a lookout and a helper for the other men if they got into an emergency. One of my jobs on the plane was to go out in the bomb bay and trip a lever on the bomb rack to drop any bombs that failed to release on the electrical signal during the bomb run. I had to go out on a 10-inch wide catwalk over the open bomb bay with the slipstream wind coming in. I was wearing goggles and an oxygen mask and breathing from a portable oxygen tube that was hanging around my neck. I couldn't wear a parachute because of that oxygen tube and the small space between the racks and the bomb bay. I couldn't be on the intercom or have my heated flying suit plugged in because of the wire length, and it was 60 degrees below zero. I doubted that that man maintained enough courage to come out on that catwalk and help me if I got into an emergency. He was taken off of flying status and sent back to the States and put in a hospital near his home in Louisiana. I continued on to flying missions until that parachute jump that I told you about. And then I was sent back to the United States on the French liner Pasteur with 200 Americans and 600 German prisoners. When I got back to the States, I was given a time of rest and recuperation. I was then put out in Arizona where I helped store aircraft thinking they would be needed later in the South Pacific. A forest fire broke out in California. I was sent up there and I helped fight one forest fire. They found out I could type, so they put me in a warehouse where I typed manifests for transport planes that was flying supplies to the South Pacific. They dropped the 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Japan surrendered, the war ended, and I was discharged from San Bernardino, California. Now, if you'd like more information on what I've told you tonight, more stories, pictures, there's a website out there at garofwar.com. I also have a 1-hour DVD, and there's a video on the website. And if you'll see me up here after the program tonight, I'll direct you in how to get that. Thank you for letting me share tonight.
Well, people in my profession aren't rendered speechless very easily, but you know, after hearing Carl's story again, it's hard to follow that. You know, here's a man who flew over 30 missions. Most of them could be made into big action blockbuster movies with, you know, they're thrilling stories, they're somber stories, and he flew one after another, and that's one plane out of many over the course of years. And so Mr. McHenry, thank you for your words. Thank you for sharing your story. And for those of you who didn't hear, for those of you who don't have a program, his name is Garl, G-A-R-L, and there is a website, garlswar.com, which can give you more information, extensive information, on his story in Europe. So thank you again, Mr. McHenry, for being part of our program today. And we're going to go a little off script. For those of you who have a program, I'd like to, now that we've talked a little bit about servicing veterans as they exit the military, and we got to hear Mr. McHenry's stories of World War II, I'd like to bring up Regina Norjones. And Regina is a perspective of a mother whose son is serving. So Regina, if you'd like to come up and share a few words with us.
Hi, good evening. I'll be really brief. You can't follow that. That's like a history lesson live. And I know there's a lot of people sitting here that are just listening and being polite. But for someone who, my papa probably knew you, because my papa served in World War II as well, in France and Germany. But when you have a son, my son Logan, is 25, going to be 26 in a week, is in the military, in the Army, has done a tour already in Afghanistan, is eager to go back. He's an intelligence specialist stationed at Fort Campbell. And when you listen to that and you have a son or a daughter who's there, it's different. You're not being polite. You understand what they're going through. And my son, bless his heart, because of him being in the intelligence industry, the entire time he was in Afghanistan, he would message me privately, and it was almost too much information. He lost his best friend 100 yards from him, not even. And when you become that mom, when you hear a gentleman like this stand up and talk about his service and what he did, I'm not being polite. I'm in awe. I understand it. And so for those of you that maybe have never visited the Veterans Museum, and I know some folks that may be a little bit much, but take some time, take your kids, shut your phones off, go to the museum, listen to men like this, bring men like this into the classrooms, and teach our youth today what a real hero looks like. It's not on the movies, it's in real life. I'm in awe. I just want to close by saying I'm so thankful for you, sir. I'm so thankful for your service. Jeff, you too. I can't even put it into words. And I'm not saying this facetiously. It means something to me. And if you have a loved one that's serving, please reach out to other folks that are home and maybe in need, because it's not easy when they come back. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and please just give these people, the real heroes, the respect that they're due.
All right, in a few minutes, the band is going to pay a salute to the military, and as they play each band's, their unit's theme song, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the rest of us, we'd appreciate it if the guys that were in there, and the ladies, would stand up and at that time while your song is playing. And just because as soon as they're done, we're going to go to the 21 gun salute, with the gentleman down here at the end, and Detroit High School band member Abby Smith and Colin members, Colin, I won't say it right, Gaudiz, are going to play taps for us, and they will actually play them. You see the horses and equine out in here, they're going to do a ride-by, and they also have the Last Soldier. So I thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. So we'll complete the program. Thanks from the bottom of my heart.